Well, good evening, everyone. It is Election Day in Nova Scotia, and we will find out soon what promises and priorities are resonating with Nova Scotia voters. Some of the major election themes this campaign included the cost of living, the lack of affordable housing, and the province's healthcare system. The Progressive Conservatives are seeking a second consecutive majority mandate, and early polling indicates that is very likely. Most Nova Scotians have just 2 more hours to cast their ballot in this 42nd provincial election, but the results will not come in until after 9 p.m. tonight after a delayed opening at one polling station. Gareth Hampshire visited some of the polls today to get voters' take on this snap election.
After about a month of hearing from the 3 main party leaders about their vision for Nova Scotia, today voters got to make their choice. The big issues of housing, healthcare, and the cost of living were top of mind for many people heading in to cast a ballot.
My main concerns are pretty similar to most Nova Scotians. The affordability of housing, groceries, basically everything to survive.
She's trying to save up for a down payment on a home, but that's a challenge with the cost of rent. And the issue is not just a concern for younger voters.
Well, I think the availability is a problem for people on low incomes. That's the big problem.
He's okay, but he worries about those struggling to pay the rent, or even worse, left on the street by the housing crisis. Many have been examining all the party platforms closely about how they plan to fix it.
I'm watching young people not being able to afford apartments. I'm watching people who have full-time jobs living in tents in my community. I mean, it's really scary.
The major topic in the last election, healthcare, remains a priority for voters as well. As of early October, about 145,000 Nova Scotians were still on the wait list for a family doctor. And even those who do have one have questions about timely access to care.
If I need to get a prescription for something like bronchitis, it will take me 2 or 3 days to see my own family physician. And I'm fortunate enough to have one.
This couple has been waiting almost a year for an appointment with a specialist their daughter has been referred to.
So I also share Anna's concerns about healthcare access, especially about getting access to pediatricians for our daughter, and as well as general care access for the whole province for primary care practitioners. But my primary concern is actually about housing prices, I'd like to see them lowered.
Some voters were frustrated earlier today when they were trying to find out where to vote. But a surge in the number of people doing it led to the election's Nova Scotia website crashing temporarily. There were connection issues on the phone line too. But all those problems were resolved, and it won't be long before people's votes are counted. Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Halifax.
And we have reporters standing by at the 3 main party headquarters to give us a sense of how the night will shape up. And we are going to begin with Shayna Luck. Shayna is in Pictou County, been following the PCs throughout the campaign. Good evening, Shayna. What can you tell us from where you are?
Well, Preston, the PCs are seeking another majority, and if the polls are right, they are on track to get it. Now, PC leader Tim Houston called this election, arguing that he needed a second mandate from voters in order to address the high cost of living. Now, he's also saying that that would give him a stronger voice in negotiating with Ottawa. Now, we know that the cost of living is a big concern for Nova Scotians right now. They're talking to us about the cost of groceries, the high cost of rent and housing, and the PC platform has put forward measures which they believe will help with that. They are promising to cut the HST from 15% down to 14%. They're also making changes, they say, to the minimum wage, to increase the minimum wage. Now, they've also made other promises, such as removing the tolls from the Halifax Harbour bridges, removing the charge for parking at Halifax area hospitals. And speaking of hospitals, Nova Scotians will remember that the PCs were elected in 2021 based on a signature promise to fix health care. Now, Tim Houston has said that there has been progress made on that point. He's pointed to more doctors and nurses being attracted to Nova Scotia. The other parties have said they don't believe enough progress is being made. They've pointed to measures like that doctor wait list, the wait list of Nova Scotians who don't have a family doctor, now tens of thousands of people. But PC leader Tim Houston has said that those were problems that were always going to take years to fix. And he is asking Nova Scotians to believe that he can do it in another 4 years. Preston?
Shayna, thanks for that. That's the CBC's Shayna Luck at PC headquarters in Pictou County. Next, we're heading to Liberal headquarters in Yarmouth. Jean Laroche is standing by. Jean, how are things shaping up in Yarmouth tonight?
Well, Preston, the Liberal leader was up well before the sun at 1:30 this morning to go out to Cape Forchou to watch the blessing of the lobster fleet. Of course, dumping day delayed a day because of heavy seas and very strong winds. Well, his party is facing equally strong political winds, and he's been trying all this election to try to counter that. Polls showing that his party is well ensconced in either second or third place. The party here hoping against hope that those polls are wrong and that they'll be able to maintain their status as official opposition. We know that Zach Churchill took over this party after it had been bounced from office. In the last election, they had 17 seats. They lost one, Preston, to a by-election. 4 other Liberals are no longer reoffering, and of course, we had 2 jump to the PC. So not a great way to get into this election, but they've been fighting the best they can to try and maintain the momentum, whatever momentum the party has, and their hope is simply to tread water and finish second in this race, and we'll see if that in fact comes true.
CBC's Jean Laroche with us live in Yarmouth tonight. Taryn Grant is staked out at NDP headquarters in Halifax. And Taryn, you've been watching the NDP campaign closely this past month. What's the party expecting? What are they hoping for tonight?
Well, it seems like New Democrats are in a good position to grow in this election. Preston, you'll remember that NDP and Nova Scotia have been in third place for more than a decade now after they lost government back in 2013. And they've been stuck hovering around 6, 7 seats, but they're really hoping that that's going to change tonight and that they'll be able to hold on to what they've got. Most of their seats are in the Halifax area, and then maybe pick up a few more also in and around HRM to boost their party, maybe even up from third into second place. You heard Jean talking about how the Liberals are hoping to hang on. The NDP are hoping to kick them out. In the polls, they do seem to be neck and neck right now, so this could be the real interesting thing to watch tonight, is what happens in the race for the opposition. And if the NDP move into official opposition, it could be a historic night in Nova Scotia. Claudia Chender would become the first elected female leader of the official opposition, and of course that would be a historic night for the party and for Claudia Chender as an individual. One of her big challenges in this campaign has been getting people to know her, because at the start of the campaign she was relatively unknown, especially when you compare her to Zach Churchill and Tim Houston. She's been an MLA since 2017, but she just became the leader of this party 2 years ago. She was confirmed into the position. There was no contest for the leadership, so she hasn't had a chance to really get herself out there and introduce herself to Nova Scotians. That was both a challenge and an opportunity for New Democrats in this election campaign. We'll find out soon enough whether or not they seized that opportunity and they'll be able to move the party ahead after 10 tough years waiting in third place. Preston?
All right, thank you, Taryn. That's the CBC's Taryn Grant. Still lots of excitement to come from all 3 party headquarters, but one of the ridings to watch tonight is in Cape Breton, Northside Westmount. Fred Tilley is running for re-election there. Now, Tilley crossed the floor from the Liberals to the PCs just before the election was called. Kyle Moore has more on that story.
Well, supporters will soon gather here at Fred Tilley's headquarters in Sydney Mines. This riding comes with some controversy. Fred Tilley has been the Liberal MLA for Northside Westmount for a little over 3 years. He crossed the floor to the Conservatives about a week before Tim Houston called the election. Now, the Liberal Party has accused Tilley of taking voter information with him to the Conservatives that they say belong to the Liberal Party. Tilley has told the CBC earlier that it was information he gathered and he feels it belongs to him. The Liberals have filed a complaint with the RCMP, who are investigating. Another twist to this riding is Daniel Laffin. He's the Liberal candidate. He worked on Tilley's campaign in 2021, helping him get elected. Laffin was also a PC candidate in 2019, but was booted from the party before the election was even announced. It's still unclear why. Laffin only saying all of that is now behind him and and his focus is on this campaign. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney Mines.
And as we mentioned earlier, a delayed start in voting at one poll outside Halifax means the province-wide results won't be published until an hour later than planned tonight. The CBC's Brett Ruskin has more on what that means.
Let's talk about the delayed opening that happened this morning at one of the polling stations and the implications that it has for all of the other polling stations and the results as they come in. So it happened in District 22, or Electoral District 22, on the Eastern Shore at 22 Powers Road. That's the fire station there, and it didn't open on time. It was supposed to open by 8 a.m., just like every other polling station, but opened at 9 a.m. So they're going to be staying open until 9 p.m. So here is what that means. Elections Nova Scotia says that they are not going to release any of the results from any of the other polling districts until all of the polls have closed, including this 9 p.m. poll. So that's going to mean a delay from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. What can happen during that time is all of the other polling stations can begin counting their paper ballots that were cast today. So we are likely going to see a huge surge in ballot counts at 9 p.m. when we have both the addition of the electronic early voting in the tablets, in addition to the paper ballots that have been counted in the other polling stations. So that is an overview of the delayed opening on the Eastern Shore and what it means for all of the other districts. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
We will be live from the legislature for Nova Scotia Votes, our election special, starting when the polls close at 8 p.m. Atlantic time. Tom and Amy will be joined by Paul Withers and Michael Gorman, along with reporters stationed across the province and a panel of political experts. And you can watch the special on TV. You can watch on CBC Gem, on our Nova Scotia YouTube page, and on our website. We'll also be on CBC Radio 1 and on CBC Listen. No problem with the weather, at least on this election day. Ryan Snoddon is here now. And Ryan, it's been a kind of quiet day, right? Weather-wise, good for voting.
Great for voting. Great voting day for sure. And we are turning active, though, over the next couple of days, beginning tonight, in fact, with some wet weather tracking in from west to east. Looking at the future tracker, and again, that rain will spread from west to east across the province. This will drop probably closer to 5, but maybe as much as 10 millimeters of rain through Wednesday morning. That low will continue to clear through the Wednesday morning time frame. Then we're going to be seeing some sunny breaks developing, mainly for the western half of the province for tomorrow. The further west you are, the more sun and cloud mix we will see. Looking like the clouds are going to remain pretty stubborn for Cape Breton and eastern parts of the mainland with an isolated chance of a shower. Area of high pressure moves in for a quick visit overnight into Thursday morning and a quiet start to Thursday, but a pretty active finish as we will see through Thursday evening. This is going to be rain to start, but as temperatures drop on Thursday night, we are going to be seeing the development of some snow. The rain mixes to snow. Looks like Yarmouth, Tri-County area, the Atlantic coastline, including right downtown Halifax. This is likely going to be mostly rain, maybe a few wet flakes mixing in, but inland higher terrain areas looking at the possibility of some accumulating snow, especially up towards the northeast, Cobequid Pass. Higher terrain areas, especially that 104 stretch between Truro and Antigonish. We'll break it down with your full weather forecast details coming up in a few minutes. Preston.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, one of the key issues this election campaign has been affordable housing around the province. A homeless encampment has been growing near Truro since the summer, now counting around 15 people. Outreach workers are trying to find them permanent housing, but as Nicola Sagan reports, it's not been easy.
Near the exit to Truro, you can see this encampment from the highway, sheltering around 15 people and counting.
In terms of housing, folks just aren't able to afford a place.
Davy Rose tracks the numbers, saying about 43 people are homeless in the Truro area, and the local 25-bed shelter can't keep up.
So we're seeing quite an increase of folks either just becoming homeless or folks coming from other areas, but a majority of folks are from the Truro area.
The area's two municipalities, the town of Truro and the municipality of Colchester, say this is a new problem.
There have always been homeless people, but we have never seen this number before.
This is the new reality, and isn't that a sad reality to be in? But this is where we are at this point.
Rose's team tries to make people safer in the encampment, dropping off supplies and working to find people housing. But it's not easy, with the kind of supportive housing many people need in short supply, and income assistance rates not measuring up to market rents.
Rent is just so high that will cover a portion, but then they have to choose between having a roof over their head and not having food to eat or medications.
And while people are stuck living outside, local volunteers are stepping up to support them.
We do daily checks, making sure everybody's all right, make sure they have everything they need every day, right? And we do our best to get it for them.
McKay is part of this Facebook group, full of people doing everything they can to help. He and his wife cook a hot meal every day and bring it to people sleeping outside.
I just want to keep them alive, fed, warm and dry until we can get them out of there.
Truro Mayor Kathy Hinton says she'll be pushing for more affordable housing here on the site of the old hospital.
There's going to be some very difficult decisions and very difficult conversations about this. And we can't turn a blind eye to it because it affects everyone in the town. Everyone.
For now, everyone involved will be putting their heads together, trying to think of a solution. Nicola Sagan, CBC News, Truro.
Well, applying for university can be confusing, complicated, and expensive. Over the weekend, more than 50 African Nova Scotian students learned how to navigate the application process. Jane Sponigal reports.
So did you end up finishing your application to UBC?
Yeah, but Next year, this group might not be sharing lunch together. Friends since junior high, and now in grade 12 at Auburn Drive High School, planning for what comes next. A lawyer, forensic psychologists, and a pediatric surgeon.
It feels really great to be surrounded by students who are going through the same thing as me, navigating the life after high school and what they want to do and what they want to be involved in and where.
Yeah, this is honestly a magical moment.
Ashley Hill is the founder and executive director of the Prep Academy, and this magical moment is the third Prep Expo. It's a chance for African Nova Scotian high school students to connect with universities and colleges. Hill tries to remove any barriers so that connection can happen. For the expo, that means busing students and their parents from Digby and Antigonish to Dartmouth, providing lunch, and lowering one big financial hurdle.
Sometimes you have to pay for an application via credit card. Sometimes it's a $100 deposit, $75 deposit that students have to come up with before their application is even considered at the school. And so what all of these educational providers are committing to doing is waiving those fees for any of the African Nova Scotian students who are here today.
Hill says the first expo had 9 exhibitors. Now there are 19, including for the first time, Queen's University.
And we decided we wanted to come and sort of promote our supportive programming that we have offered for students interested in coming to Queen's University through our first-gen admissions pathway program.
As for Saunders, getting to meet university admissions staff in person helped in other ways too.
It lifted some anxiety off me because usually when they come to the school, there's a lot more students. I feel like here it's more condensed and it's more natural.
Hill says if students missed this year's expo, mark your calendars for next fall. Jane Sponigal, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Still lots of time to vote, and we will be back with more coverage of Election Day in Nova Scotia. Ryan will be back too with the full weather forecast. We'll see you with that in just a few minutes.
Whether you're just waking up or you're on your way to work, we're here bringing you compelling stories from across the province.
And keeping you up to date with the latest in news, weather, sports, and traffic.
I'm Portia Clark.
And I'm Matt Brand.
Join us for Information Morning for the Mainland, weekdays on CBC Radio.
It's just something that draws you to the water, I guess, and I don't know anything else I'd rather do.
The dog is indispensable in my eyes. I wouldn't have sheep without a dog. I would not have sheep without a dog.
Not since the repeal of prohibition in the 1930s has there been such an incredible opportunity.
Oysters are about the story, and I said, we just want to be storytellers. Like, that's all we want to be.
I'm Angela McIver, a reporter here at CBC Nova Scotia. My focus is on consumer stories, so basically anything that involves your money. Think you've been scammed or have information about a potential fraud? Get in touch and I will dig into it. I'm here to investigate.
Hi, I'm Steve Sutherland in Sydney. If you want to know what's happening in Cape Breton Island or what's important to the people who live here, join me for Information Morning Cape Breton. News, views, interviews, live reports, reporters on the scene on matters of politics, art, community, current affairs. If it's being talked about in Cape Breton, we're talking about it on Information Morning. Every weekday morning from 6 to 8:37 on CBC Radio 1.
This is Nova Scotia. And this is Nova Scotia on your smart TV because CBC News is now streaming local. Get local headlines, weather, and community stories, plus newscasts and live programming on your favorite connected device, all for free. It's called the CBC News Nova Scotia streaming channel. See your community on your connected TV and mobile devices. Your local news streaming channel, now available.
And welcome back. Ryan Snoddon joins me on the desk here with a look at the forecast. And you're right, you earlier were saying it was kind of quiet, not much happening weather-wise day, which is a nice change.
A nice change indeed. Yeah, kind of threading the needle here in terms of the election happening today and so many folks trying to get out of the house and get to voting polls and voting stations. And yeah, the good news is it was nice and quiet. Not the case overnight. We are looking at some wet weather tracking in and really looking at that Thursday night, Friday system as we talked about earlier. Let's have a look at our current temperatures. And you can see we're, right now anywhere from 3 to 7 degrees at Lunenburg, one of our hotter spots at 7 degrees right now. As we look at those winds, boy, thankfully they have been light today, and that's a nice change because it feels like it has been windy for about 3 weeks now. Even when it's been a bit quiet, seems like it's been windy, but those winds really, really light out there right now, which is great. Looking at the satellite and radar picture, and again, we are watching that next system starting to approach. We do have increasing clouds right now, and a bit of that wet weather starting to track in, as you can see, to western areas of the province. Yarmouth, Shelburne, down towards Digby County. We are looking at that wet weather starting to track in. Sorry about that little commotion there. This is how I try to squeeze in around the desk, right? Now, as we look at the bigger picture here, this is the actual system, and you can see starting to work its way in, and yeah, there's a little bit of snow mixing in with this one. Up into the northern parts of Maine, northwestern New Brunswick may also see a little bit of wet snow from this, but overall, this is going to be a rain event for the Maritimes, and we're looking at about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain from this. Our next system, it's going to have a more wintry mix, and I mean, as you look at the temperatures across North America right now, whoa, minus 15 in Regina, minus 21 in Saskatoon right now, minus 9 in Edmonton, minus 4 in Calgary. And so this is some cold air that means business for this time of year. That's going to sweep in on the northern edge of this system. That's what is really going to help to make it a larger system that will have some snow in the mix. So let's time it all out, and we'll see temperatures tonight ranging from about 3 to 5 degrees across the mainland. Temperatures ranging from around 2 to 5, 6 degrees in through Cape Breton. The winds relatively light, even with the system coming in. They will be a bit southerly, so temperatures, again, remaining a little mild for this time of year. Note the timing of this. So by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, already likely have cleared the valley down through Yarmouth and Shelburne. Still hanging on to some showers, at least. Halifax to Truro, and east of that line. Now, as we work our way through the morning, that line will continue to work its way from west to east, departing the province. Winds becoming a little light westerly. Looking like a mix of sun and cloud developing for the Tri-County area. The Valley, the South Shore, Halifax, even into the New Glasgow, Truro regions, Pictou County, and that looks like we'll see at least some sunny breaks into the afternoon, but still an isolated chance of a shower here developing into the afternoon. Cape Breton, pretty cloudy from start to finish. Tomorrow, temperatures ranging between around 7 and 8 degrees with those winds light. 8 degrees Antigonish back towards eastern parts of the mainland. 7, 8, and even 9 degrees in through central parts. And again, this is where we'll see at least the development of some sunny breaks into the afternoon, but the best chance of seeing Mr. Sunshine tomorrow will indeed be across western parts of the province, looking at a mix of sun and cloud, and those winds becoming light and maybe even a double digit possible tomorrow along that south shore. Now, for Thursday, we're looking at temperatures ranging between 4 and 6 degrees and a quiet day overall, but quiet to start, not quiet to finish. Let's time this out. High pressure sinking off to the south, but it does visit us for a quick hello Thursday morning. Into the afternoon, clouds building in pretty quickly. And again, here is this system that is going to be working its way in. So it will start as rain and likely finish as rain. Yarmouth, and rain through the duration from Yarmouth, South Shore, and even into the downtown Halifax area back towards Eastern Shore. But we are looking at, as temperatures drop, through the Thursday night time frame, as they drop to the freezing mark, that snow is going to start to mix in. Could see some flakes mixing in as far south as the Atlantic coastline, but it's the inland and especially higher terrain areas. Model almost showing you exactly where those are here in the purple. This is where we have the best potential for some accumulating snowfall Thursday night and into Friday morning. It's a bit too early to talk about the potential for totals, as it is going to be a wet snow, and we will be transitioning over to rain as we work our way into Friday morning. But despite that transition, the leftovers, what's left over on Friday morning as we're all hitting the roads and driving around, is likely to be a bit of a slushy mess, especially for those inland higher terrain areas. So if you do not have your winter tires on, even if you do have your winter tires on, tip of the cap to you, just be mindful that Friday morning's commute is likely to be a bit slick, a bit slushy. Make sure you get the windshield washer fluid topped up. Make sure you're ready to go, as it could take you a little extra time to get there, and make sure you leave yourself some extra space. Some lingering showers and flurries on Saturday. Temperatures really looking early December-ish, as it is early December-ish beginning Sunday here across the province for that 7-day forecast. Preston.
Ryan, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And coming up, we are going to get a preview from our election special panel on what to expect when the polls close.
I'm Angela McIver, a reporter here at CBC Nova Scotia. My focus is on consumer stories, so basically anything that involves your money. Think you've been scammed or have information about a potential fraud? Get in touch and I will dig into it. I'm here to investigate.
As with all Indian residential schools, we knew countless children never made it home. They disappeared. We call this the knowing. Apologies from Christian churches, from Canadian governments and institutions will never reach our countless lost and dead children.
They didn't know who they were. They called us devils, but the devils were the ones doing this to our people.
Tanya Talaga's The Knowing. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I'm joined by Kelly Regan, who served as Liberal MLA in Nova Scotia for 15 years, including 8 years in Cabinet. At dissolution, she was the longest-serving member of the current House. Chris Lydon is President at M5 Public Affairs and was part of Tim Houston's transition team after the last election. Barbara Emodi, who used to teach communications at Mount St. Vincent University and is a former communications director for the Nova Scotia NDP, and of course the host of CBC's Power in Politics, David Cochrane. So, panelists, what are we expecting to see this evening, and what are the best possible outcomes for the parties involved? Maybe I'll start with you, Chris.
All kinds of narratives at play tonight. The first and foremost is, and all the polls have sort of shown it over the last few weeks, including MQO, which is affiliated with my company, that is projecting certainly a strong majority for the Houston Progressive Conservatives. The question tonight will be how strong. Will they climb over that 38-seat supermajority line? Will the first number in the seat count be in the 40s? How strong of a mandate will they have? That, again, the Premier was certainly talking about at the beginning of the election, that he was seeking in which to be able to gauge perhaps more aggressively with Ottawa and reaffirm that mandate from Nova Scotians. And then last, did his gamble pay off of calling the election 7 months early? So we'll see, and we'll see in relatively short order.
Are there any numbers that you're looking forward to or hoping for?
Well, I mean, selfishly, I guess, I think the War Room is certainly indicating that they're hoping that the first digit is a 4. They'd like there to be a second digit, and not that for the sole outcome. But I think the first number being a 4 is perhaps we'll call that the stretch goal, but an increased majority from the 34 seats that they started the election with. Again, they were elected with 31. They acquired a second seat in Preston with a successful by-election, and then had 2, what would we call them? Acquisitions? Is that with the polite way of saying it? Yeah. Anyway, 2 new friends joined the PC caucus over the course of the mandate from North Side in Sydney most recently, and from Halifax Atlantic in Spryfield in Fred Tilley and Brenda McGuire, who became members of the PC caucus as well. So that team of 34 going into this one, hopefully an increased majority.
And Kelly, as Chris touched on there are some challenges for Zach Churchill and the Liberals. What are you looking forward to?
Well, I think what we saw over the campaign was Zach Churchill really step up after the defections, I guess, is what we'll call them, to the PC party, and really perform extraordinarily well during the debates. People were really pleased with his performance. We heard that he was very strong and really held Tim Houston to account during those debates. We had a lot of retirements, and as did the PC party, but the difference is they had more members to start with. So those of us like me who, it was time to move on, holding those seats will be really important. It will be hard to grow beyond that because you're trying to really get seats that you should have been able to win easily in the past, but because you have somebody new in there, it takes more effort to win those. So I think that's going to be something we'll be looking for tonight to make sure that we hold on to those seats and hold on to official opposition status.
So just a hold of 16 would make the party happy at this point?
I would say so.
And Barbara, obviously, Claudia Chender has a lot to gain this evening if everything works out the way that the NDP hopes, and perhaps even an expansion outside of the urban focus of the party.
This was an opportunity election for the NDP, and they wanted that opportunity, and I think they've made the most of it. There are 3 goals. One was to introduce Claudia Chender to the province. NDP voters tend to be people who like a very strong, decent leader, and they could, I think, successfully show that's exactly who she was. The second thing, of course, is to solidify their existing vote, which means they are going to be expanding. I think we can expect to see expansion in the Halifax Regional Municipality, but it's nice to go deeper where you already are, but they really need to go broader. So if there's any breath being held tonight in the NDP headquarters, it will be to see if they can elect MLAs in rural areas, in Cape Breton, Annapolis, many areas of the province are going to be really closely watched tonight. If they can achieve that, they will really have achieved their overall goal, which is to be the party that will hold this government accountable. That's the role of the opposition. That's when you show people how you will be when you are government. And in my view, there's no better government than the one that has a very strong opposition to keep it honest.
So that is the best hoped for goal of the NDP this evening, to be in the official opposition?
Yes, absolutely.
And David, looking at this and the bigger picture, as you are familiar with, this would be a bit of a bucking the trend scenario if Houston gains momentum.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious to see tonight. If Tim Houston can do what premiers in Canada and really leaders around the world have struggled to do in the most recent rounds of election cycles, and that's hold on to your government as an incumbent, but also grow his majority. David Eby won in British Columbia, but by the skin of his teeth. Scott Moe won in Saskatchewan, but greatly reduced and almost shut out of the big cities of Saskatoon and Regina. And right next door from here in New Brunswick, Blaine Higgs lost his government and lost his seat. Tim Houston has the potential to not only hold on to government, but to grow his seat count, to grow his vote share, and really grow his majority here in the province. He stuck to the core bread and butter issues as part of his agenda, never got into culture war issues over pronoun policy and trans issues. He focused on healthcare, affordability, and housing, kept the main thing, and that's the pitch that could allow him to buck this trend of either defeated incumbents or diminished incumbents right across the Western world.
And we'll all be glued to the screen tonight. Panelists, thank you very much.
Coming up, Donald Trump issues a sweeping tariff threat. The U.S. president-elect reveals plans to impose a massive levy on Canadian trade.
As with all Indian residential schools, we knew countless children never made it home. They disappeared. We call this the knowing. Apologies from Christian churches, from Canadian governments and institutions will never reach our countless lost and dead children.
They didn't know who they were. They called us devils, but the devils were the ones doing this to our people.
Tanya Talaga's The Knowing. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Welcome back. Well, his inauguration is still almost 2 months away, but Donald Trump is already raising international tension with his policy announcements. The incoming U.S. president is threatening stiff tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico. The move could create serious problems for the Canadian economy. Kate McKenna has the political reaction.
Overnight, everything changed.
I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth.
President-elect Donald Trump has thrown his first curveball at Canada since his win earlier this month. Yesterday, he posted online saying, "On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders," saying tariffs would stay in place until both countries crack down on immigrants and toxic drugs illegally crossing the border. More than 3/4 of Canada's exports are sent to the U.S. Trump's proposal could be catastrophic for jobs.
We cannot start a war, and we have to do everything we can to not have these tariffs.
It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart.
This will be devastating to workers on both sides of the border.
Canada's public safety and finance ministers say they're working on a plan which will include boosting border security.
We have, in recent days, worked with the RCMP and Border Services about continuing to support them in terms of acquiring new technologies, drones, helicopters, additional human resources.
And could include retaliatory tariffs.
Our government will always defend the national interest.
I only care about Canada.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Trump's threat is unjustified, but called on Trudeau to tighten border security and stop the illegal importation of fentanyl.
We trade more with the U.S. than we do with the rest of the world combined. I will do what is necessary to preserve and protect that relationship above all others.
Canadian officials also say that if Trump does move forward with these tariffs, he risks hurting Americans in addition to Canadians. The Prime Minister and the Premiers are set to meet tomorrow to discuss what comes next. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, along with Canada and Mexico, China is facing the threat of U.S. tariffs. Trump says he plans to add to the fees already being levied on Chinese goods. Beijing officials have been reacting to the news, and so far their reaction has been restrained. Crystal Guman-Singh reports.
President-elect Donald Trump rattling many political cages with talk of tariffs. When it comes to the Chinese reaction, we are seeing an alignment of talking points regardless of where the official is positioned around the globe. In Beijing, officials are focusing on their attention, saying they are working to maintain an open dialogue. Worth keeping in mind here that the U.S. market is one of China's top markets when it comes to export. So it is hugely important to their local economy. When we heard earlier in the day from China's ambassador to Australia, he highlighted the fact that these tariffs could affect bilateral relations, but very much taking a calm and cordial tone.
First and most for us to do perhaps is to continue the good relation and momentum between our two countries and see what we can do together. The U.S. policy on trade with China, with other countries as well, will have impact. And that is really an important element that we have to consider.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in the United States made a point of saying that no one wins in a trade war or a tariff war. Now, in his comments on his social media page, Truth Social, Trump made a point of saying that he would impose an additional 10% tariff on imports coming from China until it stops the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S. Now, what he's talking about there is chemicals that are produced and sold that are used in the making of fentanyl. Beijing has said that it has already taken steps to address this and to curb the drug trafficking trade that goes into the U.S. when it comes to these substances. They say that there was an agreement signed over a year ago between President Xi Jinping and President Joe Biden. So they say they are already taking steps to address this. But of course, the notion of a 10%, an additional tariff of 10% on Chinese goods going into the United States could have a major impact for the Chinese economy. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Major breakthrough today in the conflict in the Mideast. A ceasefire deal has been reached to end the fighting in one part of the region, Lebanon. U.S. President Joe Biden formally announced the agreement late this afternoon.
I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah.
Biden said the ceasefire is meant to be permanent and will go into effect tomorrow morning. The deal calls for Hezbollah forces to pull out of southern Lebanon. Israel forces will withdraw as well, but will retain the right to attack if Hezbollah breaks the ceasefire. In the hours leading up to the deal's announcement, Hezbollah fired missiles into northern Israel that were intercepted, and Israel launched its most intense barrage of missile strikes on Beirut since fighting broke out 14 months ago after the October the 7th attacks by Hamas. President Biden said the U.S. will now launch another push for a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas to end the suffering in Gaza, calling on Hamas to release the remaining hostages and start negotiating in good faith. Pressure on Israel to approve the ceasefire deal between Israel and Lebanon came around today the world, including the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Rome. Canada's Melanie Joly said the group of 7 nations is ready to help rebuild after hostilities end.
What we also need to do is to step up our support to Lebanon, including the Lebanese armed forces, which are key. Also that reconstruction of Lebanon will be a key priority, and Canada will play its part.
G7 foreign ministers also talked about Ukraine in their 2-day meeting and declared their support for Kiev unwavering. Canada will take over the group's presidency for next year. Well, you've probably noticed that a trip to the meat counter for beef is costing quite a bit more these days. Prices have hit historic highs, rising at a much faster rate than, say, pork or chicken. Kyle Bax looks at what's driving up the cost.
Jim Jackson packs up ground beef, ready for the display case. This year, the price tags keep rising. So much, it's hard for him to believe.
I've been working here quite a while, and it's probably the all-time high I've ever seen them.
Beef prices have soared to historic highs across the country. The latest numbers show a kilogram of ground beef was selling for about $13 on average in September, compared to about $11.50 1 year earlier and about $9 5 years ago. Beef strip loin cuts climbed past $32 after selling for about $20 last December. So far, the sticker shock at grocery stores isn't scaring away customers.
Globally, we've got a growing population, a growing middle class, and they want more protein. And it's not just beef, it's pork and poultry as well, and wanting to have more of that product.
The record prices are not only on store shelves, but on farms too. Cattle prices are between 45% and 65% higher this year compared to the average since 2019.
We definitely have a strong price situation that producers are facing right now.
The supply of beef in the country is dwindling as many ranchers scale back their operations. They have faced rising expenses of their own in recent years, including for feed because of drought conditions.
And when you have fewer cows a couple years later, you're going to have higher beef prices because there aren't going to be the animals to provide the beef.
For Jackson, he's cut his margins to try and keep prices in check.
Our profit at the end of the day is less. I don't want to gouge customers. We're just doing our best.
He hopes prices hold steady, especially during the busy holiday season. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Well, the song Do They Know It's Christmas is a 1984 classic that we still hear during the holidays. It was created by a group of musicians in the UK to fundraise for famine relief in Africa. But over the years, it's faced some backlash. And this year, for its 40th anniversary, it's been remixed, reigniting the debate. Margaret Evans reports.
The annual Christmas season underway in London. With it, a would-be challenger to top the Christmas music charts. We Know It's Christmas is musician Fuse ODG's reply to another re-release of the Band-Aid charity song for Africa, Do They Know It's Christmas?
We honestly thought that in 2024 he wouldn't, try and bring out a song that just perpetuates like crazy stereotypes about the continent.
We're going to try the chorus.
He is Sir Bob Geldof, who brought together pop stars of the day to sing a song released 40 years ago now.
The relief effort for the famine victims in Ethiopia was boosted today by a new #1 in the charts.
It led to Live Aid and is credited with the rise of celebrity fundraising. But critics, including Ghanaian British Fuse, say it distorts reality.
Portraying the whole of the continent as a place of famine, poverty, war.
Geldof has been defending it.
The debate only happens because of this small pop song. Without it, that debate doesn't come anywhere.
Over the past year, Band-Aid says it's awarded grants worth more than $5 million for projects in Ethiopia, Sudan, Chad, and Somaliland. An echo, they say, of the work it's been doing for 40 years now. But global development expert Danny Sriskandarajah says it's time to retire the song.
We need to raise awareness of what's happening in different parts of the world, but we have a responsibility to do so in a way that reflects our common humanity and not perpetuate a sort of saviourist model of the world.
That also means, he says, owning up to the role that Western nations are playing today in terms of climate change and the implications for the entire planet. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Canada's main stock index ended today narrowly in the red, weighed down by losses in energy and base metals, while U.S. markets moved higher. Here's a look at how the markets did as we head to break.
As with all Indian residential schools, we knew countless children never made it home. They disappeared. We call this the knowing. Apologies from Christian churches, from Canadian governments and institutions will never reach our countless lost and dead children.
They didn't know who they were. They called us devils, but the devils were the ones doing this to our people.
Tanya Talaga's The Knowing. Watch free on CBC Gem.
And welcome back. Before we sign off, Ryan Snoddon is back with a last look at the weather forecast. And it's one of those days, it was surprising not to hear the wind out there.
Yeah, nice and calm. Great for getting out to the voting. Of course, with the election and our coverage again set to begin shortly. And as we have a look at our viewer picture of the day, it's been a little tough, Preston. The viewer photos, of course, with so much cloud and
hard to find some beauty out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So folks have been dipping into their own archives. So Helen Stewart, thank you so much, Helen. Beautiful reflection shot. And you can see, the sun shining there.
We'll take that.
It will
Very
shine
nice.
again. We'll see a little taste tomorrow in the Halifax area, especially tomorrow afternoon. Brighter skies the further west you go, down towards Bridgewater and Yarmouth, and those westerly winds will start to kick in there. Overall, pretty quiet day after the rain tonight, 5 to 10 millimeters, and then that system does kick out pretty quickly. Thursday, quiet to start, but unsettled to finish as we see that next system starting to work its way in case you're just joining us. So there's the 5 to 10 tonight, likely closer to 5 than 10, but a possibility is there. There's that area of high pressure, which will greet us quickly Wednesday night, into Thursday morning. And then here comes that next system. Rain for the most part, but inland, higher terrain areas, this is going to be slushy accumulating snow for Thursday night into Friday morning. We will all change to rain as we move into the Friday morning time frame, but leftovers will likely still create some slushy and slick conditions for your Friday morning commute, especially for inland and higher terrain areas. Stay tuned for updates tomorrow, Preston.
All right. Thanks so much, Ryan. And by the way, one last reminder. Tonight, we will be live from the legislature for the Nova Scotia votes. That's our election special, starting when the polls close at 8 p.m. Atlantic time. Tom and Amy will be there along with Paul Withers and Michael Gorman, along with reporters stationed across the province and a panel of political experts.
You can watch the special on your TV, CBC Gem, or our Nova Scotia YouTube page, or on our website. We'll also be live on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Listen.
That's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks for
watching. We'll see you next time.